This wasn't really a deep woods camping because my friends and I were staying at a designated campsite in a state park, but it's still a scary story. In the middle of the night, at around 1 a.m., I'm woken up to the sounds of gunshots. Two of the other friends of my tent also woke up. It sounded like the gunshots were getting closer and closer over the course of half an hour. It went from that sounds far away to that sounds like a bullet hit something in the camp. Like I said, this was a state park. Hunting is illegal, which either meant some reckless hunter was ignoring the law and hunting after midnight, or some deranged lunatic was just walking around shooting into the woods. Friends and I stayed low to the ground, afraid that a stray bullet would come into our tent. Eventually, we began to see spotlights crossing over the roof of our tent as some state troopers in a helicopter began searching the area for the suspect. An hour after we first heard the gunshots, we heard some police sirens on the main road above us. Let me tell you, the campsite was located at the bottom of a valley. There were shouts of drop the weapon. I said, drop the weapon. A few more gunshots, the sounds of some frantic scrambling and shouting instructions, then eventually silence. The next morning, we went to ask the campsite managers if they knew what happened last night. It turns out there was a guy who lived in a house that was higher up the side of the mountain above the main road. He did some meth that night and decided that it would be fun to fire his gun at any car that passes on the road. The state troopers arrived and arrested him. There were bullet holes in some of the trees around camp and in one of the RVs that was parked in one of the neighboring campsite. I'm really relieved that no one was hurt or killed by the gunman, especially after how close those bullets came to going through some of the campers' tents. Walking a section of the Appalachian Trail with a couple of buddies when we happened across a bundle of sticks. The sticks were made into a figure, kinda similar to the ones from the Blair Witch Project. It was obviously placed there by someone, as it was dead center on the middle of the trail, leaning against a rock. I thought it was cool, so I grabbed it and put it in my backpack. Anyway, we finished the hike and set up for the night in our camping spot. We were all pretty wiped out on the long day, so after dinner we retired to our respective tents and camped out for the night. Next morning I was the first one awake, so I got up to make the coffee, and what did I find? An identical bundle of sticks to the one we had found, sitting atop the pile of charred wood from the previous night's fire. First thing I did was check my backpack, and sure enough, the one I had picked up was still there. Each of my friends swore they didn't put it there, and I obviously said the same. It was weird because we were all adamant about not putting it there. I can never be sure one of them wasn't lying to us. The thing that messes with me is the bundle I found in the morning was almost an exact replica of the one we found on the trail earlier. And I find it hard to believe one of the other guys could have made such a close replica without being able to model it after the one in my pack. And it's not like either would have placed the one on the trail beforehand for us to stumble upon, as it was far out in the middle of nowhere. And to believe one of them pulled a prank on the other. Two, because the alternative scares the shit out of me. I was hiking across Newfoundland, following an old railway that was long ago disassembled, turned into a giant trail, sleeping wherever I found myself at night. One day I ran into a small cottage town, except everything was abandoned. Trailers falling apart, bus conversions burned out, small cabins all shuttered up. It was creepy, but interesting at the same time. The sun was waning, so I decided to set up camp in a mostly empty lot. I had an abandoned truck, slowly falling into a ravine near it. Cooked up some food and crawled into my tent to sleep. I wake up sometime in the night and I hear footsteps outside my tent. At first, I think it's an animal. The steps sounded like someone walking, a human. The steps get closer and go around my tent. I slowly and quietly pull out my knife. If he tries to get in, my plan is to stab first and ask questions later. Anyone trying to get into my tent at the night, in the middle of nowhere, is looking to do some kind of harm. My heart is racing at this point, but I try to just be quiet. Luckily, the steps start moving away from the tent until I can't hear them anymore. I wait a bit to see if they'll come back, but I don't hear anything. I slowly get out of my tent and I didn't see anything. Without turning on my flashlight, I quickly take down everything and stuff it into my bag. After that, I just started walking down the trail. Get the hell out of there. I walked until daytime, came across a road and flagged down a truck. That guy was nice and drove me to the town where I got a hotel. The creepy thing when I think back to it was that whoever that was likely watched me walk into town. One of the abandoned structures. I'm guessing a squatter. Would like to think he was just curious, but I'm glad I didn't stay and wait to see if he would come back. I do have pictures of that cottage town and my campsite that night.